Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode 24 of JobSeeker Live Talk. And welcome all of you on Facebook Live, watching us on LinkedIn here live, and on YouTube as well. So, hey, during our episodes, we're going to share job seeker advice, tips, tricks, whatever. I have various guests on from various industries. Last couple have been some resume writers. We got somebody a little bit different and unique today. So might as well just get started. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, David. Hey, I'm delighted to be with you today. It's going to be a great hour here.
Oh yes, we're gonna have a great time. So hey, if you don't know Jeff, proven leader with over 30 years of experience, from solo entrepreneur to Fortune 500 businesses, really specializes in developing aspiring new leaders as well as building highly effective teams. And we're going to talk about, besides job seeker stuff, we're going to talk about some courses. And if you stick around, wait, there's more. You might get a special offer from Jeff, and we'll talk more about that later. But Jeff, welcome to the show. Tell everybody, I only touched on it a little bit, but tell everybody maybe a little bit about what you do and why you're here.
Yeah, I'm David, one of the co-founders of a new company called Level Up. And, you mentioned in your introduction, I've been passionate about developing leaders. I've been in leadership roles for some 30 some years. And, over that time, I've just really latched on to trying to develop people. I love seeing people that aspire to leadership roles. And I've just really enjoyed helping them develop into leaders and move them into leadership positions. And, over the years, I thought, well, how do we get that information out to more people? And, earlier this year, we decided to start a company called Level Up Courses to do just exactly that, to get the things that I've been passionate about for the last 30 years. How do we package that up and get that out to people all around the world?
No, and we're gonna touch base. We're gonna show some people more than a few things, and we'll get more into that.
Yeah.
But so want to make sure everybody understands. Maybe this is the first episode that you've seen, but I want you to put if you have any questions for Jeff during our live event, please make sure to put them down below. And I'm looking on my phone and I can see that we have people viewing us on LinkedIn. I can't tell if we have anybody watching us on YouTube or Facebook. I'm sure we do, but make sure to put your questions or comments, or you just want to say hello or whatever, but don't be shy. We're here to help answer anything. At least we'll attempt to answer. So, I had a question, Jeff, based on your decades of experience developing and training and people in teams.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about job seekers. Like, what do you think? If there was one thing that you could share, like what are one thing that you think that job seekers are really struggling with today?
I think to me, David, what I see people struggle with is really differentiating themselves. You always probably think of maybe it doesn't really work this way anymore, but some big stack of resumes on some hiring leader's desk or some staffing person's desk, and your resume is just in this giant stack. And how are you any different from anybody else? I was chuckling when I was thinking about our call today. If your viewers can watch last week's show, I'd encourage them to do that, because you played a short clip of a man who differentiated himself in a huge way. So you got to go check out last week's show, because David shared a man who had put together a video of him singing and dancing. And I know that all of our listeners aren't going to put together a video of singing and dancing, but they can differentiate themselves from the other pile of people in that stack.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was from my friend Jay Beach. So I'll touch base on. I'm not going to show it, but Jay was out of a job, and uh, if you want to, again, Jay Beach Beech. He's across the pond in merry old England. He was out of a job, and he's in kind of social media branding, video, and all that stuff anyway. So he created a video of himself kind of singing a song, and kind of maybe a popular song, but changing the lyrics about how he's out of a job. And that on LinkedIn, it had almost 1 million views.
Yeah.
And he had job offers. Now, yes, not everybody's going to do that, but that shows you the power of social media. So hey, I gotta say hello. My buddy. Hey, hey Joseph, what's up? I believe you're still in Florida, right? But anyway, so friend of mine that's commenting and showing up. And remember, hey, if you have any questions, put them down below. And hey, and if you want to see any of the replays, just go to YouTube. Go on a YouTube channel, and you can watch them all. All right. So you talked about, Jeff, making yourself different and unique, right? Kind of like that video of Jay that Jay did. Uh-oh, did I lose Jeff? I might have lost Jeff. Uh-oh, I lost Jeff. We'll see if Jeff can come back. Hey Joseph, if Jeff doesn't come back, you want to come on? I can do that. I just have to send you an invite. All right. While we're patiently,
come back.
Well, welcome to the show. All right, you didn't miss nothing. All right, Jeff, are you there? Uh-oh. All right. Are you there, Jeff?
How about now?
I can hear you now. Are you okay?
Yes.
All right. Hey,
I lost my internet connection.
Stuff happens. I'm hardwired, and I still lose it once in a while.
Yeah.
My internet, at least. All right. So yes, Jay Beach. But okay. So what are some things I could do as a job seeker? I'm not Jay Beach. I'm not gonna be able to do this, extravagant video, right? But so what are some things I can make myself be different and do something different?
A couple broad things I think you want to talk about today is some things you can do before the interview. And also some things I think that once you get the interview, some things you can do to differentiate yourself once you're in that interview process. So, prior to the interview, like the video you talked about, it just reminds me of a stack of resumes I got a few years back for a position. I'm going through the stack and I see a resume that the address is from Japan. And typically the people we hire when I was in that role, we'd hire people typically from the region, Midwest in the United States, typically not even nationwide. And all of a sudden I've got this guy who sends me a resume from Japan. And that differentiated him. And I know your listeners, again, like making a video, can't move to Japan to change their resume. But that's another good example of differentiating. So what can people do that aren't in that position? I think one of the things they can do is really take a look at kind of what they present on their resume. I think I was taught probably a long, long time ago, your resume should be show as reverse chronological. Here's my last job, and then on back in history.
Sure.
And and I know that's your expertise, David. You really help people with that, and probably can give them some great tips on what to do. But I have a great story, I think, to go along with a resume that kind of was that traditional resume. Worked with a young lady several years back who had a lot of promise. I thought she should have got promoted, but every time she applied for the promotional job, she was getting passed over in staffing because she didn't have the number of years of experience that were required in the job. That was the feedback she got back from the staffing group. And I knew this young lady pretty well. It's like, I know she can do this job. So we sat down with her and got her resume out. And, just a little background, the job she was trying to get was a scheduling job, scheduling construction crews. And we got looking through her resume, and down kind of buried in her resume, she had worked at a car dealership for 7 years. And David, the job she had? She scheduled auto mechanics. And it's like, And so we worked with her to redo her resume and brought that 7 years of scheduling experience right to the top. And the next time she applied for that type of a position, she sailed right through staffing and got the job. And so, I think my advice to the listeners would be, take a look at that. If you're doing that traditional resume, hey, give David a call because he can help you do this, for one thing. But also, instead of reverse chronological, take a look at what requirements the job has. And then look through the skills you have and really highlight those skills and make sure they match up with those minimum requirements. I'm not sure, David, exactly, how you counsel people, but to me, it's like, use your resume to get past that staffing screen, get you an interview. That's what you really want. And if you can match your skill set to what the job requirements are, that's going to take you a long way in getting past that staffing screening.
Oh yeah, 100%. And Jeff, the resume, sure, I write resumes, and it does need to be good, but it's only one piece and really serves one purpose. It's just like you said, it's to get you potentially in front or where they want to call you, right?
Yeah.
So then of course, then the interview and everything else, comes up. So it is just one small piece. Having the perfect resume, again, doesn't get you necessarily hired. It gets you noticed. That's perfect. I do have I just want to say shout out to Joshua Young. He's been on a couple. I've been seeing you, so I appreciate you showing. You showing up. We do have a question though, and I get this question every 2 or 3 episodes. It seems like, how do I get a remote job in another country? We're not going to say just US. We'll just say in another country, because that is difficult. If I live in the US and I see a job, but it's a remote job, but it is in Japan. This time it's in Japan. That's tougher. Any advice for Muhammad?
Well, I agree. What a difficult question, because I think a lot of what I typically share, would have dealt with and really would talk about is relationship building. And so, I think that's part of the challenge is how do you build a relationship halfway around the world? I think, if you're, trying to get a job in maybe your local region, you can build key relationships, but it's much more difficult. I think that's where a platform like LinkedIn that you and I both spend some time, how can you build your reputation, build relationships with people? I still think maybe it's a stretch, but I think that's a way that you can start to try to break down those walls of obtaining.
While we're waiting for Jeff to come back to us, I do have another question that I want to share. All right. Anyway, hey, thank you for you called us wise. That must mean we're old. I'm just joking. So, how do you feel about people spending too much time hiding behind job sites, emails, CVs? Do you think the lack of direct communication through using your real voice could have created a disadvantage for people because they rarely now get that opportunity to actually speak to make that first good impression? That's a good question. I mean, listen, 400, 600, 700 people sometimes are applying for the same position. Let me give a little bit of advice what you could do on social media, and more importantly, LinkedIn. Okay. So that's okay. Don't worry. I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to answer this question because I'm in the kind of the middle of it. Okay. To answer this question, on social media, more importantly, LinkedIn. If you post, you're a subject matter expert about lots of things. Write an article. An article is just a long post, a blog, right? Write an article. I don't care if nobody sees it. I don't care if you publish it and you get 0 views. Here's the thing: you apply for a job. If I'm a hiring manager, recruiter, I find you on LinkedIn or I have your resume, and I see that you've written this article. I might skim it. But because I've looked at that article, now I have a better understanding of your knowledge about that subject. And now I know a little bit about what you know. So that's why posting on LinkedIn, especially on LinkedIn, on other platforms as well. But if you're posting things related to job industry, tips, tricks, advice, when somebody goes and looks at your profile and sees that you've posted that, again, doesn't matter how many views, but they can appreciate what you're sharing with them. So I think that can help you go from, one of those 400 or 600 applicants to really narrowing it down, because we talked about the resume just being one little piece. Your LinkedIn profile is another that you should just have buttoned up so they learn more value about you. But let's face it, recruiters, hiring managers, because they're getting so many, they count on you matching up to the keywords and what they key in and want. So that's where you can actually increase your likelihood of showing up in the right recruiter searches by having an amazing LinkedIn profile. Jeff, anything on this particular question that you might have to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think you, David, probably covered it really good. I kind of missed the part of your answer, but I just agree with you that I think the other thing maybe I would add, though, David, I was kind of thinking about social media more in general, maybe than just your LinkedIn profile, is, people, I think, also have to give some thought to what other things that they're putting out on social media that potential employers are going to see. And, it might just be, you talked about the positive side of things. I think people also need to pay attention, what kind of things are you posting other places that employers might look and see and really may turn them off. So just something to be mindful of.
Okay. No, that's perfect. That's perfect. You know what? And recruiters and hiring managers might not probably have less time. So if they have you have a LinkedIn account, maybe they're only going to spy on that. We do have a really good question here from Jeff. Resigned at his current previous employer, 10-year career. He says he's planning to partner with me soon. Well, at least send me your resume and let me take a look at it, because I don't charge to look at it and provide you advice. Yeah. Maybe it's great. I say edit this or change that. Hey, that's free. But so he says, what about speaking to gaps of employment or unemployment and speaking to reasons for resignation? Currently at a 3-month gap. Let's talk about the gap first, Jeff. 3-month gap. Now let's even expand on that. Let's factor out COVID. Pretend COVID never existed. And I wish I think we all think that we wish, it didn't exist. But anyway, a 3-month gap, 6-month gap, 9-month gap. Is that much? Is that a big deal anymore?
I mean, personally, to me, if I was the hiring leader, it wouldn't be a big deal to me. I can look back on my own resume and, a long time ago. I have a gap in my resume, probably of about 5 or 6 months. So similar to what Jeff's talking about. Um, I think that short a period of time, what was I doing during that 6 months? Well, I was looking for a new position. It
Sure.
just takes time
Yes.
to move from one position to another. So I think that probably to me is pretty easy and probably doesn't even need to be addressed. You know, when you start price stretching out longer, maybe it becomes, I don't know if I'd say more of an issue, but maybe more something that at least you need to speak to when you're talking with someone.
Sure.
But not the short term stuff. I wouldn't bother me a bit.
No, and in fact, even before COVID, it just takes people longer. I remember being
Yep.
unemployed and, I thought, hey, with my skill set, it shouldn't take me long to find a job. And well,
Yeah.
it took me a while. But
Yeah.
so yeah, don't worry about that. Now let's touch on this is difficult for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So tell me why you're not at your current
Yeah.
employer. So how do I address that?
Yeah. I mean, the thoughts that come to my mind right away, David, I think you just want to be really careful not to not only burn a bridge
Mhm.
with the past employer, but
Sure.
I think you want to be, you know, I think you can talk about maybe we had differences of opinions or difference in philosophy of how we wanted to do things. But I think you want to probably present that in at least as positive manner as you can. I would avoid, really saying negative things about, um, as negative as they might have been, about saying negative things about that experience. So probably need to spend some time thinking through, hey, we had a difference of opinion, how to do things. We had a difference in philosophy.
Sure.
And, in Jeff's case, just kind of thinking about the question that you had up on the screen, we just had a mutual decision to part ways. You
Sure.
think you can come up?
While Jeff,
Yeah.
oh no, okay.
Oh, man. All right, good.
Hey, no worries. No worries. So listen, we all have a free get out of jail card because of COVID.
Sure.
If you're unemployed because of COVID, or maybe you became unemployed prior to COVID, and now it's harder for you to find a job, then it's taking you longer because of COVID, right? Again,
Sure.
but because of COVID, you can. I mean, I'm not telling you to lie. This is for everybody, just in general,
Yeah.
right? Well, due to issues surrounding the pandemic, it was best for me at this point in time to leave.
Yeah.
I'm Jeff. I'm not telling you to say that. I'm just saying for everybody, listen, that's a valid excuse. Maybe your company says you have to come vaccinated, or you have to, or this or that, or whatever, whatever the reason. Companies understand, and we know that it's not going to go back to normal tomorrow. COVID's a good answer for almost anything right now. I can't make that webinar COVID. I can't pay my bill COVID.
Yeah.
No, so Jeff, all kidding aside, the gap is not that big of a deal anymore because hiring managers, HR, recruiters understand it takes people sometimes potentially a long time. Now you can shorten up the time it takes you, with obviously making sure your LinkedIn profiles buttoned up, your resumes
Yeah.
buttoned up, but then that you have the interview skill, knowledge, to make sure that when you do get those interviews turn into offers. Now, so you know what? That's a perfect segment, Jeff.
Yeah.
So how do I increase the likelihood of turning in those interviews into offers? Is it just any little tidbits of advice? And then I think I might have to share my screen and share some stuff that you have to share. But if I'm going to get that interview, I'm highly qualified. Just some basic tips I can do to maybe increase that likelihood of getting an offer.
Yeah, I think to me, David, as I think through this, the things that I want to talk about are fairly simple things to do, but most people don't do them. One of the things that I really like, I was taught many years ago, is when you're going to go into an interview, I want to go in with probably about 5 stories about myself, 5 stories that really showcase my experience, my skill set. And I'm going to go into the interview with the intent that I'm going to tell that interviewer all 5 of my stories. And so what I'd recommend that people do is, the interview is going to ask you questions. Who knows what they're going to be? And I think I work with a lot of people. They go in and they're just probably a little fearful. Like, I don't know what the questions are going to be. And so I don't know how I can prepare answers for every possible question. Don't do that. Go in with your 5 stories that showcase yourself. And then as you get asked questions, you know these stories really well, and just pick and choose those stories to answer questions, and just adapt your stories to those questions. And I think that really, I think that can take a lot of fear away from going into the interview, because it's like, I'm not going in just like, what's going to happen here? I'm going in and say, this is what I'm going to say. And, I would just also encourage people, typically I think end of a lot of interviews, the interviewer might ask you, is there anything else? And if you get to that point and you haven't been able to share one of the stories that you've got, tell their story and use that opportunity to say, oh yeah, and hey, I've got this skill set. And so, but I don't think people get really trained to do that. And then I think the other thing that I'd also recommend at the end, when it's kind of like, is there anything else? After you've told your stories, everybody's got to have, I think you probably would teach people the same. You got to have that elevator speech close on, here's a paragraph that I got memorized, and David, here's why you should hire me.
Yeah.
And I'm just telling you, I've been in hundreds of interviews. I've done hundreds of interviews, and people don't do that. No. You get to the end and you're the interviewer and say, is there anything else? And they say, no. And they just blow a perfect opportunity to really differentiate themselves from the crowd.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too, I've done this when I've interviewed for positions. I'd encourage people to do this as well. Take one sheet of paper in with you. And I would do this on this one sheet of paper. Have enough words of your 5 stories so that you can glance down at the paper and remind yourself. So if you get tongue-tied, if you kind of lose your train of thought, you get,
sure.
You're sweating and you're nervous and I can't remember, you can glance down at the paper. It's like, oh, I got to tell that story. And then the other thing too, that probably is one of my biggest pet peeves in interviews, is you get to the point at the interview at the end typically, and I'll ask a candidate, David, do you have any questions for me?
No.
And that's the typical response. It's just like my pet peeve, because I think, if you want to look at people that knock it out of the park as far as interviews, they can ask a few very thoughtful questions. They're easy to find. You can go Google them and there's all kinds of lists. It's easy to find, and you can pick out a couple that you really like. I think it's a couple I really like that I think people should ask is, you're the hiring leader. In your opinion, what does success look like in this position for me?
That's right.
So have that hiring leader say, hey, if I get this position, what's successful? Another question I really like back at the hiring leader is, what are your top 3 challenges in your area or in your department or organization, whatever. And there's some others, and they're easy to do. And I'd encourage them to put those 5 questions on that single sheet of paper as well. So if they get flustered,
oh yes,
they can glance down. And I've been in interviews before where people brought in like a 3-ring binder of stuff. It's like, don't do that. Don't do that.
Sure.
Don't read your answers.
Yes.
But just have that one sheet that I think can be pretty professional, but it just gives you a little bit of help in case, I forgot what I wanted to say. You can remind yourself. So I think those are a couple of things in the interview that I've just observed that people do and don't do. that really differentiate people. And as I think about it, I think, oh, they're so simple, but most people don't do them.
No, you're 100% right. So, hey, says well covered. Thank you. And Jeff says, thank you. Solid advice. And like the Joshua says, like the 5-story idea. So why do we call them stories? Because that's easy.
Yeah.
Stories we resonate with, right? They're ours. We own them. They're touchy. They're feely. You can remember how maybe you're talking about interacting with somebody else, and you remember how they feel. You remember how you feel. When you tell and share stories, you don't need to memorize them because the stories are up here.
Yeah.
That's why we call them stories. So yeah, good job there. And I think, so, whoops, I think we have, Christina says, fantastic tips. Love the 5-story strategies. Many actors practice for auditions to make sure there's a story that says something behind. Yes, I agree. Now, stories should come out naturally. When you try to memorize things too much, you're going to do what I did on October 20th of 2020. How do I know that date? Well, it was my first paid speaking gig, and maybe the first 5 minutes didn't go so well. That's because I tried to memorize instead of just sharing. And because of that bad experience, the next day on a plane, that different show, different time, but on the flight from Orlando to Seattle, I wrote a book.
I mean, David, I probably use that word memorize, and I appreciate your, maybe not correction, but just I think you're right. I mean, I think when I use the word memorize, I think we're talking similar things. It's just be familiar with your story enough so that you're prepared to tell it, that you've thought through the details. Again, I agree with you. You don't want to sound like you're reading it. You don't want it to be memorized, but you do want to know what you want at what point you're trying to get across.
Sure. But that's why I like you saying the story, because you're familiar with stories. That's just a great word. But that's why you hear people saying share stories, because again, they'll come natural. You'll remember them because you will remember it, and you'll just, you'll remember everything. And they may have to slow you down during that. And says, thank you for the sharing the, great idea on the one page there. I had one quick question. So a lot of interviews are done via Zoom, even before COVID, but now especially companies know I never need to bring in another person ever again, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So then I'm going to share something else. So how do I bring a piece of paper? How do I show up differently, in a virtual interview, right? Because I don't want them to think that I'm looking down at my notes or whatever.
Yeah. I think, just kind of my thought, David, is to me, the one sheet is probably something that if you're well prepared, you probably don't ever have to even look at it.
For sure.
I just like it because, I've been in that situation. You probably have. A lot of the listeners probably been. You kind of get in the middle of it, and you could lose your train of thought. You kind of get flustered about something, and you just need to glance. So, I'll pretend. I mean, I don't want to do this, but I don't think it's a problem to just do that. And that's really what I have in mind more with kind of this one-page document is it's like, I just want something there that if I kind of get my brain twisted up, I can quickly glance. I can see 3 or 4 words that remind me, that's my story I need to tell. Sure. And I don't, like I said, I've been in interviews where people have almost read things like that. It's like, no, don't do that. And so I think even in a Zoom, kind of in that environment, for you to glance down quick and just quick look at something, I don't think that's a problem. I think if you're doing this, that's not going to be good.
Yeah. I always tell people, if it's going to be virtual in the beginning, ask them if you're going to have an opportunity to ask questions, and say, am I allowed to take, can I take notes? Because just by saying, even if you don't, they kind of know you're going to be looking down. And to be honest, when somebody says, hey, can I take notes and can I ask some, a couple questions at the end? That means you want to be there. I don't care, and don't ask, can you tell me about the culture? Man, you have already you've done your homework about the culture. So,
one thing, David, I've even done when I'm doing interviews, I've even gotten to where I'll give a copy of the questions to the person doing the interviewee, because I've kind of come to thanks for the applause.
Yeah.
I just kind of come to the belief that it's not about them being able to quickly memorize the question I fire at them.
No.
I want to hear their answer. And so, I typically have copies of the interview questions and hand them here. Here are the questions we're going to go through, because I want you to really give me a good answer and not miss parts of it. And, I know it's a little off topic here for our job seekers, but, if there's any hiring leaders, I suspect there's hiring leaders online as well today, just something to think about. I think that helps put that job seeker maybe a little more at ease. Because I want to get what I really want. I want to hear their answers, but I really want to get to know them.
Yes.
I want to know if I hire you, do I think we're going to work well together? And hopefully they are asking the same thing, of me, hey, if I come to work for you, are we going to get along? Are we going to be able to work together? To me, that's probably just as important as any answer they give to a question.
Yeah. This was a long time ago, it was almost the culture of, hey, I want to ask a question that gets that applicant, right? I want to get them.
Yeah.
No, damn it. Nope. You want to get amazing things. So I'm going to share this briefly. Somebody I know and love had an interview with, interviewed somebody and didn't have a very good, maybe experience initially. I said, call them back up. And they go, call back up the applicant? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, why? You didn't get what you wanted out of them, right? And they're like, yeah, maybe they were nervous, whatever. Okay, call them back up. Sure enough, they called them. And guess what? They got more out of them. The idea is, listen, you want them to talk. You want them to get out that information so you can know the days and times of the gotchas. No.
Yeah.
Give them the questions. I like that.
Doesn't serve any purpose it is not a gotcha exercise.
No, and even if you give them it doesn't mean that you're always going to have applicants that give you the answers that you're looking for. So again, show them what an A looks like. I remember hearing that a long time ago. Show them what looks, what is going to get them. Anyway, so
I know. Yeah.
It's amazing. But you know what? We know this. There is most of the time it's today you're going to interview some people. Oh, I've never interviewed before. Okay, great. Here's a list of questions. You don't become a great interviewer overnight. It takes a while, and there's no training courses. There really isn't. Sure, I guess there's some stuff you can. I guess there is. Maybe if you go to school at human resources, maybe. But most people are not very good at interviewing. But
David, one other thing that I've done that probably more in the line of trying to develop future leaders, people who I know who have aspirations for leadership. Mm-hmm. One of the things I've asked them to do is sit in on the interview, like on the interview panel. Sure. And it's always an eye-opening experience for them to be on the other side of the table, to be interviewing candidates. I think it makes them stronger candidates when they interview, because they've kind of sat on that other side. And so, if somebody who's listening to job seeker is, unemployed or doesn't have a job, it's kind of impossible for them to do that. But for those job seekers that maybe already are employed in a company or an organization, that's a great way to practice your interviewing skills, is asked to sit in on an interview panel, and you kind of get a different feel for what thing, you're in the discussion about, well, what did you think of that candidate? What were the pros and cons? And what a great experience that then the person can take as a job seeker and really use to their advantage.
I totally agree. You don't learn how to do something unless you see others doing it, or you have to feel it. And I totally agree, even if you're just sitting on. All right. So why am I sharing this? So talk about some of these courses, but you know what? Actually, before we talk about those, why did you develop these? Besides, maybe making an extra buck or two. But tell me why. Tell us, why did you make these?
Yeah, I just kind of go through my thought process, David, on this. Like I said, I've been passionate about developing leaders for a long time, and always thought, boy, I'm so passionate about this. I want to share what I think I know about the topic with other people, and so just kind of kicked that around for the last several years. And kind of always where I ended up was being a consultant, going out and doing this kind of training on the road. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be flying around everywhere doing seminars. That's not what my aspiration was. And so I'd always kind of hit this dead end on, well, okay, I think we have great information to share, but I don't want to do it in how I think I need to. And earlier this year, just kind of, as your kind of light bulb moment goes off, it's like, what would happen if we took that content and put it online and we're able to share it that way? And that was really the kind of the genesis of Level Up. And so, we spent most of this year so far developing this content, and really what we're geared towards is I really am passionate about aspiring leaders, people who want to make that step to leadership, and maybe new leaders that maybe are a little baffled by what they're really supposed to do. And so, kind of my passion is helping people make that leap to leadership. And so what we've tried to do is package up probably an overview course of about 62 5-minute videos that just kind of give an overview of leadership. And what you're seeing on the screen, we've got our Level Up Leadership course, which is the full thing. One of the things we also did is said, well, maybe people, we were thinking about the show today, and we were thinking maybe somebody doesn't want to take the full leadership course, but we've got pieces of this that might apply to interviewing skills and some of the things we've actually talked about today. So we broke out some of our courses into little or smaller parts that may be more targeted towards people.
Okay, no, that's great. And I heard that maybe these prices aren't necessarily set in stone, at least today.
Yeah, we again, David, I'm so excited that I was able to come join you today. I mean, just hopefully the listeners and you can tell that when I get talking about this stuff, I am passionate about these things.
Yes, it's easy.
And we want to share our knowledge. And so what we'd like to offer the listeners today is the prices you see on the screen are our normal prices. But for listeners today, if you want to go online and take one of our courses, we've got a special discount code, and we're going to offer 50% off for folks that want to hop on there here in the next few days and take advantage of what we have to offer. And you just popped up the code. If you go to our website, which is levelupcourses.co, there's a spot when you register for the class for a discount code. And if you put David 50 in that spot, you'll get 50% discount.
And that'll be the link to the website, email, your LinkedIn profile will all be on the post on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. When I first saw that David 50, I know it's 50% off, but I was 50 years old when I left my day job to do what I do full time. So that resonated with me, at least.
Yeah.
I was almost 51, but I was 50. And you know what? Hey, 50% off for free. Jeff's not going to give you money back. And, so the free one's free. It's not double free or, whatever. But you know what? If you're just not sure, then that's easy. Take one of those ones first that you think that you maybe could level up on. But hey, 50% off of $249 is pretty darn inexpensive. So I'll leave that up here for a little bit. I'm going to see if we have some more comments, which I think we do. So let me look at it. So, had more luck hiring great candidates over a coffee interview and start. I love that. So, what I used to do as a leader, I would have two little interviews. The very first interview I did with somebody, I tried to do not in the office. Now, I did bring them in, even before I, made an offer or whatever, because I wanted them to see the environment that they would be, working in, maybe ask employees some questions. I was a retail district manager for a long period of time. So I wanted them to see, their working, surroundings. But that is a phenomenal people and Starbucks or a coffee shop or whatever. Hey, I happen to love Starbucks, and maybe I used to take people there, but it puts people more at ease. I know it's an interview, and maybe they're still nervous, but it is just coffee. And maybe with COVID, we're not doing that quite yet or whatever in some parts. But that's perfect, because the goal has to be trying to get the most and the best out of that.
Yeah, I love that. And I just, David, one of the things that we spend a lot of time in our course is relationship building. And, the comment here, I think, even, it's like you said, a little easier to build a relationship, maybe kind of instead of sitting in a conference room somewhere.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. It's cold, or looks so sterile and whatever.
Yep.
And again, yeah. So what if there's people talking behind you? It's the hustle and bustle. It's the, feel it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a place where if I'm the one being interviewed, maybe I'm used to going to that place, and it's just you know what? Please, please. Let that person that's interviewing you buy coffee. I know sometimes we go, oh, okay, I don't need anything. No, accept that, gratefully, and go have a conversation. And like Jeff said, share those stories. So you are obviously a great leader, because you hit it right on the head. You had more luck hiring candidates over coffee interviews. So that is perfect. Or maybe you make them go to Starbucks and do it virtually or now or whatever. But I do miss that. Again, that human interaction, just having coffee, again, whatever it is. So obviously a great leader. And I think we're connected on LinkedIn. I recognize your LinkedIn profile, I think. But anyway, so, all right. You know what? Let me just ask you this. How to interview like a leader? What does that mean? Give me some behind the scenes there.
Yeah, that's we try to come up with catchy titles. Why does somebody want to click on one of these things? And
sure.
And I hopefully the listeners think that this is true, is that even if you don't have a formal leadership title, probably in some ways everyone ends up being a leader. And I think one of the things we want to talk about, I think, and we go over in this part of the course is, how can you demonstrate leadership skills and traits, even if you're not interviewing for a leadership role. And one of the things I look for when I'm interviewing is I want to, if I'm hiring maybe even an entry level person, David, I'm looking for somebody who I can see, boy, if we can work with that person over the next couple of years, they're going to be a supervisor. So I'm not interviewing that entry level job. I'm interviewing for a supervisor 3 years down the road. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to get at with this part of our course is how can you do things in an interview setting where you can demonstrate some of those leadership, skills and abilities, because some of those leaders, if you're interviewing with me, I'm looking for that next leader.
Yeah, I think if you're if you're not that, you're missing out, because we all know how hard it is, especially now, to find, quality candidates. But
Yeah.
if you're building the bench from up so you can promote from within. I remember my bosses, my regional directors used to tell me, Dave, if you have to hire for an assistant or a manager outside the company, you have failed.
Yes. 100%
Now, that
agree.
as a leader, yes. How come I'm not helping develop those next people? One, by hiring people. You don't hire people that don't have the potential to move up. Now, it doesn't mean that they have to, or they will. But do you see, can they do the next role? Because if you don't do that, especially in a lot of industries, I was in retail. If you're in restaurant retail and you don't, you're going to always be hiring for those, and you do nothing as far as those other employees, because they're like, well, I got passed up. Well, but shame on you for hiring people that would not, move up in the company.
Yes. Yeah, and I completely agree with you, David. You might, I just remember, working with a young man who I thought had a lot of leadership potential, but we'd have aspirations discussions and ask people, what do you want? What are you looking for? Where do you want to go? And he would say, I'm not interested in that. And, I give him a lot of credit for that, even though I think he could be a tremendous leader. That's not what he wanted. And so, my challenge always then to people in that situation is, okay, well, then let's work on developing you to be the very best you can be at what you're doing.
Yes.
And, but I agree with you. I am always looking for, hey, who's that bench person that we can develop? And that's why we've got the course named the way it is, because that's just probably maybe a personal thing of mine.
No, I like that. The more we talk, the more we're aligned. I'll have to have you on again. We'll talk more in depth about some of the things that we're discussing. But no, especially in like retail, in those others, where maybe you have a big box retail, you have a lot of employees. If you're always hiring outside the company for shift leaders, assistant managers, you need to rethink who you're hiring in the first place. You can't hire bodies. You can't just, battlefield promotions or battlefield hires. If it's not the right hire, don't hire. You're better off going short staff than wrong staff. Oh my God. I'm starting to get, it's been 2 years since I left my, my day job, but don't get don't get me started.
I got you all worked up now.
You got me all worked up, because people, they make it hard on themselves as leaders by hiring, not hiring the right people, or thinking, oh my God, we're short staffed, we have to hire immediately. But if you hire the wrong person, you're doing your company, your staff, and the person you hire no justice whatsoever. Great point, Jeff, about thinking down the road and not just existing positions. Jeff and I could obviously talk about this subject for a very long time. But I have another question. Might be the last question that we have. We'll see. If you're, I'm not sure on the name of the person. Sometimes they show up, sometimes it doesn't in there. But if you're having a virtual interview, any recommendations on your background? Natural home office look. Like your background's really, really nice. Red wall picture. Mine's a little busy, but hey, I'm on camera quite a bit, so I got some personal things, and it does spark some conversations, because somebody will say, hey, what's that cat? That cat hasn't moved. Okay, that cat is a stone cat. That cat is like 40 some years old. I have a pink football. That's actually sparked a question. I go, well, no, actually, I caught that at indoor football arena game, and it's pink because it was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I like sharing it. And those cute pictures of your dogs or whatever. So. I guess, so just pick on me, Jeff. If you were interviewing me, tell me what's right or wrong or indifferent about what if I'm being interviewed,
Yeah.
should I maybe go somewhere else?
Well, I mean, what I like, David, about your setting, it's kind of a varied background, just kind of gets into the weeds of stuff, but you kind of got weeds in the background over your right shoulder,
Right?
so it kind of gives some contrast. I like I mean, it's fun to hear your story about the football because that's a good story. And, I like
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
And so, maybe it's a way you can build rapport with the interviewer where they can see some personal things. And it's like, oh, hey, what's up with the pink football?
Sure.
You know, when I think about where I'm at, this is my home office. I spend lots of time in here. Kind of inside baseball. I got bath towels over the windows. I've got my son calls it a ring light in front of me, and we did a dry run. Yes, so I'm just helping. It's trying to kind of if you really want to look right, I think you got to think through those things. What's the lighting look like? So I'm lucky. I have a son that's just really great at that stuff, so he can help me.
Sure.
But I think that's something people need to think about. Is okay. Like you said, your background, kind of sparks interest because kind of interesting things. Lighting to me is important. If I didn't put the towels on the window and it was sunny outside, you'd only really see half my face.
Sure.
So I think people, if they're doing stuff, interviews online or even just meetings online, those are some things to think about. I like your deal about, the dog running in or out, or, it's just funny, all the Zoom calls and Teams meetings we've had over the last year and a half, how many crying kids you hear in the background. And,
Right.
and I mean, in this environment, if I was interviewing somebody and I heard their child crying in the background, personally wouldn't cause me any issues at all because I know what situation they're in.
That's
But I
right.
think, if you can be in probably as professional a spot as you can pick. Yeah, and I think I like paying attention to the lighting because I think that ends up being, you want to look good if you're trying to interview. You want to present yourself the best you possibly can.
No, I agree.
So like I've got my office doors closed to try to minimize the sound coming in and out. And my wife was mowing the lawn, and I was like, "Don't be mowing by my window during the show."
Oh
So
yeah.
just I think some practical things. You just got to think about what's the perception going to be of that person that sees you.
No, I think that, and Joshua, yes, lighting is everything. I do the same thing, Jeff. I have my windows closed because if
Yep.
they weren't closed, the lighting would be horrible.
Yeah.
And you know what? Yes, because of COVID, we do these things more and more, and we're working at home and whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be perfect. I would not suggest having it in a coffee shop where
Yeah.
people can obviously be heard and, too many distractions. But look, maybe if I was interviewing, maybe I would leave this here because I want people to know I'm, fun or whatever, or maybe I wouldn't, as long as there's nothing, offensive or whatever. But I think the best thing to do is get on a video call with a friend or relative and let them critique that. Just say yes or no.
Yep.
And if all else fails, have nothing in the background, I guess,
Yep.
although that can look kind of, sterile too.
I think my preference, if I had to say, one of our two backgrounds versus just maybe a plain white wall, my preference would be, hey, I can see pictures in the background. A white wall just is kind of stark.
I agree.
And
yeah. And again, what if it sparks a conversation? And you know what? And anytime an interview can spark a different conversation, probably means the interview's going well. Like if it was towards the end and Jeff was starting to say, what is that exactly? Or is that, do I see Arnold bobblehead, or do I see Mr. Bill? And people actually know who Mr. Bill might be. And some of you might not know, and that's okay. But again, it doesn't have to be as rigid as we think it is. So
Yeah.
I hope we answered your question a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you Google what should my background look like during an interview, you're going to get some tips. Because I remember when we were all working from home, I would see some things on the news about, how to set up your home office for video and stuff like that. But I don't think you have to think about it all that much.
Right.
Just prepare lighting, sound. That's the two that mean the most. And you know what, Jeff, I think we'll call this the last question. We'll recap it, make sure people know David 50. But I'm going to look at Jeff's question just real quick, and then I'll post it up here. Oh, or maybe not a question, but a statement. Short staff versus wrong staff sounds like a catchy book title. Hey, I'm going to take that right now.
Or David, that may be a good course title for somebody that had online training courses.
Yeah, short staffed or wrong staffed. Jeff, you got me thinking. I thought I would never write another book. Writing that book was a great journaling experience for me. It's not a big read or anything like that. And yes, my book's in the up there somewhere. But short staff versus wrong staff. Yeah, Jeff. Maybe you're onto something. But anyway, hiring from within is extremely important too. Hiring externally when there are amazing internal candidates may decrease morale. Solid of current employees who may look forward to some role in the future. I totally agree. I remember talking to applicants or talking to current employees like, well, why didn't I get accepted for that? Yeah. And then maybe I didn't hire them. Maybe I took them on because maybe I changed, or just say I'm new, and I overlooked them because maybe I can never see them in that role. Now I have to be the person telling them right now, that applicant brought more than, and I would tell them that. And sometimes it's not what they want to hear. And 3 months later, they're saying, hey, I found another job. And you know what? Yeah. But that's where, and Jeff Hilton said this. I mean, again, you can't just hire a body ever. And in a retail and in restaurants, maybe entry level, I get it. But it will not do you any justice to the employee, the company, and to in your current team. It will not. Yep. So no, that was perfect. And that does sound like a catchy book title. Short staff, wrong staff. I'll rethink about that. I've got a vacation that I'm going on soon, so maybe I'll have time to write another book. But there you go. Anyway, Jeff, amazing how 63 minutes goes by pretty darn quick here.
Yes, it does.
All right. I'm going to share this one last time just because I can.
And David, while you're looking at that, I just, I'm on LinkedIn as you are, and all of the listeners out there. If we're not already connected, I'd love to connect with you, either on my personal account or on our Level Up page.
Yeah, I'll put that on there. Hey, that saves me from asking that. How's the best way for people to get in touch with you? But hey, if you're watching this on the replay, you might not have had obviously you couldn't ask a question, but feel free to, reach out to Jeff and, ask that. But I want you to at least go here, see if you believe that some of this can provide some value. And obviously, from knowing what I know about Jeff after this live event, I'm pretty aligned with what he believes in as far as interviewing and hiring. So that means that these courses are probably ones that I would want to take to level up my game. So I'm going to highly suggest you go here and look at these. Remember, use the code David50 to get 50% off, but connect with Jeff on LinkedIn. Take a look at all those. I got his email. I got his website. all up there. Take a look at the business page there. But anyway, Jeff, if you can hear me, it was maybe not. It was a pleasure having you on the show today, episode 24. Hey, everybody, thank you very much for showing up. For those on Facebook, those on YouTube, those on LinkedIn. And hey, if you think you need some help with your resume or LinkedIn profile, just message me. I'm always happy to provide some little bit of free advice. If it takes more than that, then we can talk. But anyway, thank you. Hey, you could spend your day doing lots of stuff. So that being said, hey, I hope all of you make the rest of this week your best week ever. And Jeff, you have the last word.
Yeah, David, what a wonderful time to just talk to you about some stuff that I really like talking about. So hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yeah. All right. So, last thing from Joe. Cut the last 30 minutes. Really enjoyed the conversation. Well, thank you, Joe. And hey, Rick. Hey, I'll be in touch. Anyway, hey, everybody. Again, thank you, Jeff. Just stay right there. I'll be
Yes,
right.
Sir.
I'll be right. I'll be right back. Again, everybody, go enjoy the rest of your week and make the rest of this week your best week ever. Bye for now.